We're joined by our great friend, the Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. You know, Congressman, I forgot to ask you a couple of hard-hitting questions the other day, so thank you for joining us.
Kevin, it's great to join you.
Good to have you with us. So, you know, I saw that you had a chance to hang out with our old friend Sean Hannity, and, you know, I was going to ask you, were you part of the Hannity Town Hall last week? And apparently you were, and what was that like meeting the great American?
I was. It was the first time I've had a chance to meet with Sean, and so we got to talk with him a little bit. I sat in the background during that interview. We had a chance to speak briefly afterwards and, of course, take the obligatory picture and all that. But that was a good experience, and very clearly he's got the respect of a lot of members of Congress there, and he took some of his time and just shared some thoughts about how important he felt it was from his vantage point that the members of Congress figure out how to unify and get on the same page. Now, we all knew that, but coming from him and from his vantage point and the mouthpiece that he has, I think that was important.
Now, I have to hit you with this. Did you notice that he has this unique gift that whoever he talks to, and it's not fake, it's real, it's just a gift that he has, that he makes you feel like you're his best friend in the world?
He does, and I think a lot of good communicators have that skill. You know, there's just been a handful of people I've ever met that have that touch, but he's got that skill. Also, I had to reflect a little bit. Of course, he's done how many thousands of shows, right?
Right.
But he didn't need hardly any notes whatsoever. There was the prompter. He had a piece of paper in his hand, but he never looked at it. And I was at a vantage point where I could see the prompter that he was looking at. And he didn't go off that prompter all the time. He was all over the place. So that's a real gift.
Yeah, no, and not to talk, but when I saw that picture of you and him, and I go, darn it, I meant to ask you that. But again, it was the visuals were stunning. Now, when you have this town hall with the new speaker, does that serve a purpose as opposed to just being a platform for our great friend Sean Hannity? How unified are you guys? And considering the folks in the Senate are upset with you, how unified is the new caucus, sir?
It's a twofold purpose, obviously, to show the Hannity audience, which is a very big audience, that there's a lot of people that are standing behind the speaker. But also, I think it's another opportunity for us to exhibit that, and that just builds that rapport a little bit internally. Kevin, I need to be a little bit realistic. We're probably going to know more here in another hour or two after we have our first major conference meeting. We are about to engage with another continuing resolution debate because, not surprisingly, with the gap of time trying to identify a speaker, a lot of that appropriations time has been used, and so we will have the bills over to the Senate, but they're not going to be resolved by the time this current fiscal deadline hits, which is going to be the 17th of November. And so we're going to be going into conference here in about less than an hour, and we're going to be talking about how we try to mitigate that. So this is going to be probably Mike's first significant test internally. There's several options on the table, and I think it's important. It's really important, and this is going to be one of the points that I make when the opportunity comes with my colleagues. Let's show this country that we don't just go to a standstill now. We're off to a good start. We've shown a little bit of unity in getting the speaker in place. Let's keep this ball rolling, and let's put this in the hands of the Senate in a way that dictates the pace and it dictates the outcome. And there's ways to do that. The short answer to your question is we don't know for sure. I'm skeptical, but I'm also hopeful.
Well, and another issue, and again, not that I'm stalking you, but you had a chance to run the House for a day. What was that like?
Yeah, that was a real honor. I was the first, I believe, at least official pro tem that was asked to step into the chair to open the session and be the pro tem for a day, and that was quite the experience. I've seen that happen with a lot of historic figures, and you're standing up there in the chair, and you're officially opening the proceedings, and I've always thought, that would be a tremendous honor, and lo and behold, Mr. Johnson asked if I would do that, and he was otherwise occupied, and so I said, of course, I'd be honored. I was, and Kevin, there's a lot of downside that comes with these jobs, but there's also those times where you just have to stop and reflect a little bit that this is something that very, very, very few people ever get to do. So not only is it an honor, but it's also one of those responsibilities you just don't want to mess it up. So that's what I was thinking at the time.
Boy, a long way from a civics class or history class at Meridian, huh?
Long way from a civics class in any state around the country.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a better place to start things off than in a small town in Idaho, which is where I was blessed to have the opportunity to start, and that's rural America. So.
Yeah. And
we're very much honored.
And by the way, let's just take a moment here on KIDO Talk Radio. I mean, that's living the American dream. You never know where you're going to end up, but you keep working, you keep helping people.
Never the plan, that was for sure. It was never something that I set out to do years ago, but it has evolved into that. And you also never know, Kevin, how long this is going to last. I mean, How many times have you woke up one morning to learn that a friend, an associate, a colleague, a family member, way too young, was called home? And I see that all the time. Of course, I don't consider myself old yet, but you don't have to be. You just never know when the time's going to come, or circumstances change with your profession, your career, your health, whatever that might be. And so every single day is got a little bit more importance than maybe the previous day, because you just never know. And that realization sets in. You see just how vulnerable those you love are, those close to you, those you're affiliated with. You say, my goodness, I didn't know that he might not have been healthy, or there was any risk there, and all of a sudden he or she's gone. And so, you're just thankful. And I've lived in this life in a way that I never dreamed I would be able to, and so I'm a very thankful person.
Yeah, no, I was very very happy for you when I saw that. Let's move on to a couple of things. When you're not in Washington, you're in Idaho. You had a chance to let everybody know that you are going to continue to support Israel, despite some criticism from some folks in Congress, which is surprising. But what was that like, the rally for Israel?
So there was a hastily called rally on this last Sunday at the Boise Capitol. And just a few days prior to that, I was asked if I'd participate. I immediately said yes. And, frankly, that entailed about a 6,000-mile trip in order to make that work. But, I think it's important, especially at home. I just have to tell you, I was extremely pleased with the turnout. For such short notice, the number of people that showed up was certainly in the hundreds. My understanding was, and I was not there the day prior, my understanding was there was a protest on the other side of that issue the day prior. I don't know how many. I was disappointed to hear that in my home state. And I thought, you know what, there very well may be more of those protesters that show up. There was not, at least if there were on Sunday. I didn't see it. I felt that was a very positive sign, but the people there were genuine. They were informed. They were supportive. And, the governor, of course, had a proclamation for that day. There was a number of other people that stood up on behalf of Israel. And you're right. This is something that we do need to do. Israel's interests are America's interests. They're the first line of defense against terrorism, against us, because that source of terrorism is the same. They're the only true democracy in the Middle East that serves our interest. The intelligence we get from Israel is absolutely astounding, and it's saved many, many attacks on our homeland because of information we get from them. So they are a true partner, And I think it was just critically important we showed support, and I was honored to participate with that last Sunday.
Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. How do you see the support for Israel in Congress or in the House?
It's very strong. I was like a lot of people. I was astounded by the immediacy and the breadth of protests that started popping up right after the attack on Israel by Hamas. That was supportive of Hamas, and I think you and I talked about it on this program. But and it was immediate. And it was popping up and still is on certain college campuses, and it makes you wonder, my goodness, what are we teaching these kids, and where are they getting their information? I mean, it's unthinkable. But in Congress, we really haven't had that. Now, of course, there's several members of the so-called squad who've been outspoken, but they always are. But frankly, they're the only ones, and we've had debate. I took the debate to the floor. I was a co-sponsor of the resolution to support Israel, and so I spoke on the floor, and got pretty much a unified response, Republican and Democrat, and so, the mainstream media they'd love to put, a squad member on the camera and focus all this attention. But honestly, on this issue, I haven't seen that much opposition to the Israel support. Now, different story when you get into the money and you get into the military support and that type of stuff, and that fight is yet to happen. What happened last week, I think, was a very good move, and I supported it. We took the money that we, as in the U.S. House, we took the money that the president wants to appropriate to build the IRS army and said, how about if we support Israel's army with that instead? And so we took the IRS money and we put it towards the Israeli effort. That way, that money was already appropriated, so we didn't have to go out and find more of it. It's all debt service anyway. But anyway, that's where we are. That's in the hands of the Senate, but they're kind of in a pinch because if you look at the Senate makeup, Chuck Schumer's from New York. There's a lot of Israeli supporting Jewish people in New York, so. We're going to see what happens there, but there's been a lot of support for Israel in Congress.
Our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us, and yet here we have the Senate that wants to tie in Ukraine with Israel. That's what Joe Biden wants. That it supposedly is what Mitch McConnell wants. How are you guys going to rectify that?
Two uniquely separate issues, and that's the way that we need to address that. I articulated some of the reasons why it was so important that we support Israel. The Ukrainian situation, we're already north of $100 billion, Kevin. We're into our own reserve stockpile significantly with equipment and things that we have sent there. And, if you start looking at the detail and peeling that back, you have to start wondering, is there a better way to go about this? Personally, my advocacy internally is let's focus on raising the cost to Russia. And there's in this situation, nobody wants to see Vladimir Putin get the old Soviet band back together. We don't want to see that, and I've supported support previously to prevent that from happening. But if you take a look at it now, he's really only got one significant source of revenue in Russia, and that's his oil. We have the capacity to take that out and economically starve them, make that cost so high that has a direct influence on the Russian capacity to continue this. Personally, I would rather focus on those types of efforts. We have the sanction capacity. We've got leverage through markets all over the place. Yes, that means we have to fire up our own energy more, but frankly, I think we need to do that anyway for a whole host of reasons. This is just another really good reason to do it. And so that's where I'd rather see the focus. That's a different debate than support for Israel. That needs to be handled separately.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, what do you make of what your colleague, Mr. Comer, has come up with concerning now we've tied that Joe, along with Hunter, there's a direct line that they did get money from the Chinese.
And it's real and it's validated. And so it just looks uglier and uglier for the president with that situation. And Kevin, I felt for some time that the Democrat nominee is going to have to be somebody other than Joe Biden. I still believe that. I think that they're in a very difficult situation. The world knows he's not entirely healthy. The world knows his capacity is not entirely there. Then you add on top of that the revelations of what truly appeared to be some significant wrongdoing, and it makes it that much more hard to justify. And at the same time, regardless of the number of charges that they levy on the previous president, President Trump, he continues to rise in popularity across the country. And so they've got a real issue on their hands. And I think that the potential wrongdoing, which appears to be more and more real, could be the final nail in that coffin in terms of him being the nominee. Behind the scenes, I'm not part of it, obviously, but behind the scenes, I've got to believe the Democrat hierarchy is scrambling to try to figure out what Plan B is going to be.
Congressman Russ Fulcher, a couple more questions, then we're going to let him get back to work. Congressman, your thoughts on your committee's natural resources, energy, what's going on there?
So the efforts with natural resources and energy and commerce are back in full swing. Things kind of got put a little bit on hiatus with all the speaker stuff because committees actually are nominated and put forth under the various speakers' leadership, and that was in question. But both of those are back in play. Had a huge win last week with natural resources, an amendment to the Interior Appropriation Bill that I submitted, and that was to pull public funding for this 30 for 30 initiative. That's the president's initiative to take an incremental 30% of federal land across the country and basically buy it with federal money, set it aside for so-called environmental use. That got pulled, and so that was my amendment, and that went through not just committee but full House floor vote. It was one of very, very few amendments that actually passed. And so that was the biggest single thing, and I'm just elated that we were able to do that. And with the energy and commerce agenda, we're back on this artificial intelligence topic. There's a lot of education that needs to happen within Congress, and there's a lot of debate as to what the proper role of Congress is. And so that's back on the docket this week. Artificial intelligence is undeniably having a big impact and can be used for a lot of very positive things. It can also be used for a lot of negative things. And so, honestly, we're trying to get our heads wrapped around what, if anything, is the appropriate role of government here. And what are we dealing with, and how do we best deal with it? So that's what's on the docket, Kevin.
Congressman Fulcher, any final thoughts? Anything we missed that you'd like to share with us, sir?
Great to talk to you next week, Kevin. By then, I think we're going to have a real good roadmap as to what's going to happen after the November 17 Fiscal deadline also, as you know, today is election day for a lot of states in the local areas, and so we'll be able to get a feel for what happens in some real critical places, and look forward to talking with you about that. And for anybody out there who hasn't voted, today's the day. Let's get it done.
And do you remember your first campaign?
I do, and I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I was learning on the fly and walking my shoes off and driving my tires off the car, and things are a little bit different now with all the media and the social media and the other ways to communicate. But I think still the best way to do it is just that way. You get out in front of people and let people know who you are.
Congressman Fulcher, we appreciate you. You have a great day, sir.
Kevin, it's always great. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
That's our great friend, Congressman Fulcher, joining us here. We'll get your reaction.